The top stories tonight in Y News. A panel in the lower chamber of Congress is crafting a bill that will grant emergency powers to President Rodrigo Duterte to fix problems in PhilHealth. Meanwhile, the president awaits the results of the investigation of Task Force PhilHealth, according to Malacan.
Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Magalong has recorded a low contact tracing efficiency ratio average nationwide. The Department of Health, on the other hand, emphasizes the need for stringent contact tracing even for probable or suspect COVID-19 patients, and that mayors should be deeply involved in contact tracing.
Yung mayor na nakikita ko na talagang deeply involved sa contact tracing, tinututukan niya yan, tinututukan niya yung minamanage niya mabuti yung kanyang COVID-19 situation. Hindi lang niya pinapaubaya sa kanyang mga health officials. Mas mataas po ang performance po nila.
The newly installed Philippine National Police Chief's priority is to go around and inspect police stations nationwide to ensure that all police personnel are doing their jobs.
The Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines once again clarifies his earlier suggestion to include the implementing rules and regulations of the anti-terrorism law to regulate social media in order to combat terrorism.
In the USA, renters who are facing eviction because of the coronavirus cannot be expelled from their homes as President Donald Trump issues an executive order stopping eviction.
The Australian Parliament passes the extension of JobKeeper wage subsidy, allowing Australian businesses to keep operating amid the coronavirus pandemic.
Good evening, Philippines and the world. Today is Wednesday, September 2, 2020. I am Harleen Delgado. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the country and in other parts of the world.
We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts and our website, untvweb.com. I am William Theo.
First in the news, a panel in the lower chamber of Congress is crafting a bill that will grant emergency powers to President Rodrigo Duterte. One of our senior correspondents, Ray Pelayo, will tell us why.
The House Committee on Public Accounts and the Committee on Good Government and Public Accountability see the need to give President Rodrigo Duterte emergency powers. This is to fix the problems within the Philippine Health Insurance Corporation or PhilHealth. Representative Mike Defensor said this had been done before, like when the country faced a power crisis in 1993, when then President Fidel Ramos was given emergency powers to fix National Power Corporation issues at the time through Public Act 7648.
Sa kaso po ng PhilHealth ngayon, under the leadership of Attorney Dan Tigueran, kinakailangan niya na maglagay ng mga personnel, tumulong sa kanya immediately. Pwede ding mga kumpanya na umalalay sa kanya sa IT, and so we will give that powers to him and to reorganize PhilHealth as they seem fit.
After the termination of the hearing, the Joint Committee considered to include in their report issues on PhilHealth's interim reimbursement mechanism or IRM, its case rate system, the Commission on Audit report, and the computerization of PhilHealth. The filing of cases will also be included. Health Secretary Francisco Duque III attended a hearing in which he expressed his dismay over the Senate's recommendation to include him among officials who face cases in connection with the alleged anomalies in PhilHealth.
The Senate committee made baseless findings on mere allegations alone.
Meanwhile, a former senior auditing system analyst of PhilHealth, Ken Sarmiento, exposed in the hearing that there is a syndicate within PhilHealth that takes advantage of the OFW's premium. Sarmiento discovered the modus operandi of this alleged syndicate, which he said uses fake receipts when he was assigned in the Philippine Overseas Employment Administration or POEA. Based on information gathered by the committee, there's about 1.2 billion pesos OFW premium which has not been remitted.
Napansin po namin dalawa po ang modus na nangyayari rin. Isang retail na fraud. Retail meaning isa-isa po na binibigyan ng fake receipt yung OFW. At may napansin din po kami isang level na wholesale na dito po may involvement na po ang hiring agency na ini-instructan po nila ang LO nila na wag na magbayad, mag-remit ng premiums sa PhilHealth.
The committee is also planning to amend the law on PhilHealth's OFW premium. Ray Pelayo, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Meanwhile, President Rodrigo Duterte will await the results of the investigation conducted by Task Force PhilHealth, according to Malacan. Our palace correspondent Rosalie Cos tells us why.
Presidential spokesperson Harry Roque says that President Rodrigo Duterte will wait for the findings of the task force as well as their recommendations. Task Force PhilHealth is expected to finish its investigations on the anomalies and corruption allegations within the state health insurance, according to the palace. Criminal and administrative charges against Health Secretary Francisco Duque III, who is also the chairman of the board of PhilHealth, resigned PhilHealth President and CEO Ricardo Morales, and more than 7 other officials of the agency. Secretary Roque says Malacanang respects the Senate's findings.
Kaya po, ang Presidente, dahil binuo naman niya yung task force, ay susundin po niya ang rekomendasyon at sa ngayon po, inaasahan natin na matatapos yung formal na investigasyon mga September 14. Pagkatapos po niya, sana po within the month, ay magkaroon na rin po ng rekomendasyon sa Presidente ang ating task force. Bagamat, kapag rekomendasyon ay kasuhan ng ilang mga tao dahil nandiyan na yung ang ombudsman, po pwede na pong gumalaw ang ombudsman.
Meanwhile, Malacanang maintains that Health Chief Francisco Duque III still has President Duterte's trust and confidence unless Task Force PhilHealth recommends otherwise. The palace official is also confident that the corruptions in PhilHealth will eventually be resolved with the new leadership. Reshuffling of its high-ranking officials as well as the investigations undertaken into the alleged corruptions in the state health insurer. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Baguio City Mayor Benjamin Magalong has recorded a low contact tracing efficiency ratio average nationwide. The Department of Health, on the other hand, emphasizes the need for stringent contact tracing, even for probable or suspect COVID-19 patients. And to tell us why, we have Asher Kadapan Jr. reporting live. Yes, Asher.
In Baguio City, Mayor Benjamin Magalong, the country's contacting czar, revealed that there is an average of only 1:4 ratio for contact tracing efficiency nationwide. This means that for every individual infected with SARS-CoV-2, several local government units are able to trace only 4 individuals who had close contact with COVID-19 positive. Although a slight increase was recorded from 1:2 in the last 45 days, Magalong explains the ratio is far from their benchmark of 1:37. He said that it is most possible that no contact tracing had happened, as the 4 persons may come only from the patient's household, as a Filipino family averages with 4 to 5 members. Here's what Mayor Benjamin Magalong said about the low contact tracing efficiency ratio.
Napaka-imposible yan na mangyari sa isang tao na 4 to 5 people lang ang close contacts mo for the past 14 days. So, kaya nga nag-set ko kami ng benchmark na 37. Kung pwede ko sana 1:37 based on our own experience po dito sa siyudad ng Baguio.
To help intensify the efficiency of local government's contact tracing, Mayor Magalong's group has been continuously conducting training, mentoring, and counseling. He also mentions the need to employ more contact tracers who are not necessarily college graduates, but should have certain skill sets, including critical thinking and investigative mindset. Magalong emphasizes that the efficiency of contact tracing depends mainly on the involvement of mayors.
Yung mayor na nakikita ko na talagang deeply involved sa contact tracing, tinututukan niya yan, tinututukan niya yung minamanage niya mabuti yung kanyang COVID-19 situation. Hindi lang niya pinapaubaya sa kanyang mga health officials. Mas mataas po ang performance po nila.
The Department of Health, on the other hand, stresses that tracing close contacts of probable or suspect COVID-19 patients should already be done even while waiting for the COVID-19 test results. Further action should also be executed promptly, including isolation within 8 hours.
Makakuha ka ng 37, okay, you have reached the target. Pero ano ginawa mo dun sa 37 na yon? Did you immediately isolate them within 8 hours? Kasi nga maraming nangyayari, inaantay pa ang resulta bago mag-contact trace. Na kailangan kahit na hindi pa lumalabas ang test results, once na-identify mo na ang pasyente or individual is a suspect or a probable, kailangan umpisa na ang contact tracing.
Arlene?
So, Asher, why does Mayor Magalong say that LGUs need to employ more contact tracers?
Arlene, the local government units need more of them as Mayor Magalong restructures the contact tracing system with a more organized procedures. Magalong explains that what they used to have is additional organization of contact tracers comprising of team leaders, assistant team leaders, and members. But the structure of contact tracing ecosystem that Magalong calls, it requires interviewers, tracers, analysts, data encoders, technical support, as well as community support such as the barangay health and emergency response team. As of today, there are only approximately 149,000 contact tracers across the country and only over 400,000 close contacts of COVID-19 patients have been traced. And just basing it on the 1:20 ratio for contact tracing against Magalong's 1:37 benchmark, the number of close contacts that should have already been traced is 3 million. Magalong only hopes that more funds will be allotted to hire additional contact tracers in the country. Arlene?
Thank you so much, Asher Gadapan Jr., for that report.
The Department of Health reminds that local government units may not conduct clinical trials for potential COVID-19 vaccines unless approved by the Food and Drug Administration and past ethics review. Our health correspondent Aiko Miguel tells us why.
The Health Department has received information that the Cavite local government plans to conduct a clinical trial that will involve 10,000 residents in the province. In an interview, Cavite Governor John Vic Remulla has said they will prioritize policemen, public utility vehicle drivers, factory workers, and senior citizens in joining the clinical trial. According to the DOH, they have talked with the Cavite government to explain the process of the clinical trial.
We immediately contacted the proponent, no? Ito yung leader nung magre-research. And we have discussed with him kung ano dapat yung proseso. And he should and they should notify DOH. At nagkasundo naman kami. At ang sinabi naman, they would be regularly updating us kung ano na yung magiging estado. Sa ngayon, they are still trying to negotiate at ipina-final pa rin nila yung kanilang protocols.
Undersecretary Vergere also emphasized that clinical trials cannot just begin by merely wanting it to proceed or happen. Local government units must follow the right process, especially the safety and lives of people are on the line.
Walang pwedeng mag-umpisa ng any clinical trial kung wala kayong approval ng FDA at wala kayong approval ng ethics review. If you do that, you are violating specific laws. So you will be sanctioned and you will be asked to stop. Kapag hindi po dadaan sa ganitong proseso, hindi natin masisiguro na ligtas yan. And that might cause harm to our citizens.
Also, according to the DOH, the clinical trial of the Japanese anti-flu drug Avigan in the country has not begun as of yet. The Avigan clinical trial, which will involve 100 COVID-19 patients, did not begin today because the ethics review of 3 hospitals where the trial will be conducted has yet to be completed.
So itong ethics review po ng Jose N. Rodriguez Memorial Medical Center, Santa Ana Hospital at saka yung Quirino Memorial Medical Center, hindi pa po ito na-final. Yung sa PGH naman po, yung MOA is currently for review na ng legal review na po ng UT Manila. Pero meron na po silang approved ethics na review. So ang inaantay ho natin yung 3 ospital para makapag-final na po ng approval for the ethics review.
Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Healthcare workers with mild and moderate COVID-19 cases will now receive compensation from the government. Aiko Miguel is back to tell us why.
Even before, groups of healthcare workers have been calling on the government that their colleagues with mild and moderate COVID-19 condition also deserve to receive compensation. Based on the DOH report this morning, health workers with mild and moderate COVID-19 cases will now receive 15,000 pesos financial compensation. This covers affected medical professionals listed since February 1. According to DOH spokesperson Undersecretary Maria Rosario Vergere, this is included in the implementation of the Bayanihan 2. Severe cases will receive 100,000 pesos each, while the families of fallen medical workers will receive 1 million pesos.
Makakaasa po sila sa DOH na patuloy po kami makikipag-ugnayan sa ating mga healthcare and allied healthcare organizations and associations upang mabigyang tugon po yung mga pangangailangan ng ating mga healthcare workers.
The DOH has distributed the 1 million peso compensation under Bayanihan 1 to families of 31 healthcare workers who succumbed to COVID-19. It has also distributed the 100,000 peso compensation to each of the 37 healthcare workers who were in severe and critical condition due to COVID-19. Based on the DOH report on August 31st, there are now 7,064 healthcare workers infected with SARS-CoV-2. 6,470 have recovered, 40 have died, and 554 are active cases. Of those active cases, 345 are in mild condition, 205 are asymptomatic, 2 are severe, and another 2 are in critical condition. The health department also says there are other cases that need validation and not cause delay in distributing the compensation as instructed by President Rodrigo Duterte.
Atin pong sinisiguro na mas comprehensive na ang benefit packages ng ating healthcare workers nang mabigyan sila ng nararapat na suporta sa kanilang ginagawa para sa atin at sa kanilang pag-aalaga sa mga COVID-19 patients.
Aiko Miguel, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, the country's Department of Health says that more than 2,000 new cases were reported today, based on tests done by 102 out of 110 laboratories. The National Capital Region remains as the area reporting the highest daily cases, with over 1,000 today. It is followed by Laguna and Cebu, both with over 100 additional patients. While in the Visayas, Iloilo and Negros Occidental both reported more than 80 new COVID-19 cases. Those numbers bring the total confirmed cases of coronavirus infection in the Philippines to more than 226,000. According to the DOH, there were 42 duplicates that were removed from the total case count. Of these, 10 recovered cases and 1 death has been removed. There are now more than 64,000 active cases, of which 91 81.2% are in mild condition. We have lost 27 more patients, but through our fervent prayers, medical interventions, and sacrifices of our medical frontliners, 609 more people have won their battle against the invisible enemy. That brings the total recoveries nationwide to 158,610. Thanks be to God.
Let's now take a closer look at the updated count of coronavirus cases around the world. The COVID-19 pandemic has now reached a total of almost 25.8 million confirmed cases in 188 countries, regions, and sovereignty. That's after more than 208,000 new cases have been reported in various countries since yesterday. The fast-spreading disease has claimed over 857,000 lives after almost 4,000 death cases were recorded globally, while more than 17 million patients across the globe have recovered from the new coronavirus infection. Thanks be to God. The newly installed Philippine National Police Chief's priority is to go around to inspect police stations nationwide. Our police correspondent Leah Ilagan will tell us why.
To ensure that all police personnel are doing their jobs and the minimum health protocols to fight COVID-19 is properly implemented, newly installed PNP Chief Police General Camilo Cascolan will go around and inspect police stations across the country. General Cascolan says he also wants to know the needs of his men on the ground.
Nandiyan ba ang red team talaga nila? Nandiyan ba ang barangay enforcement team? At nandiyan ba yung tinatawag natin mga marshals ng lahat ng mga lugar? Of course, they are there, pero ano pa ba ang kailangan nila? Kaya mas maganda talaga bumaba tayo.
Cascolan adds he will also revive the 8 hours duty of each police officer on the field, which he initiated during his stint as Chief of the National Capital Region Police Office.
Ang 8-8 is 8 hours beat patrol, 4 hours reserve. Yung 8 hours beat patrol, ikot ka dyan sa bansal kung saan-sang lugar pupunta. Pagkatapos yan, lahat ng inaresto mo, yun ang i-document mo sa 4 na oras sa reserve mo.
He will also revisit the police operational strategies in anti-criminality campaign, anti-insurgency, and anti-terrorism.
Everybody should know what to do and how to do it.
And being the father of the PNP's anti-illegal drugs campaign, he will evaluate Oplan Double Barrel to come up with a second phase of the government's anti-illegal drugs program. The turnover ceremony of the retirement of General Archie Gamboa was held this afternoon in Camp Crame. Cascolan's specialty is field. He has been assigned in Iloilo before he became the chief of police in Taguig City. He had also been assigned in Davao Police as finance chief. Cascolan is the author of the Bible of the PNP's War on Drugs, Oplan Double Barrel. He became the director of the Directorate for Operations. Before that, he was the NCRPO chief for the short period of time and then headed the Civil Security Group. Cascolan is the 4th PNP chief coming from the Philippine Military Academy Sinagtala class of 1986. It started with former PNP chief and now Senator Ronald Bato de la Rosa, followed by General Oscar Albayalde and then General Archie Gamboa, who retires today as he reached the mandatory retirement age of 56. Leah Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces of the Philippines once again clarified his earlier suggestion to include in the Implementing Rules and Regulations, or IRR, of the anti-terrorism law the regulation of social media in order to combat terrorism. As he faced the Commission on Appointments for his nomination for the rank of General, AFP Chief General Gilbert Gapay was first asked by Senate Minority Leader Franklin Rilon about his earlier proposal, noting that it raised concerns and reservations. Gapay said the AFP has no intention to curtail people's freedom of expression or to impose prior restraint in making the suggestion to regulate the use of social media. media. According to the AFP chief, based on their intelligence reports and experience, terrorist groups, including that behind the twin bombings in Holosulu, use the social media to promote terrorism, recruit new members, and solicit and generate financial and material support from domestic and foreign sources. Gapay said what they want to regulate is not the use of social media itself, but the social media platforms and service providers to make them more liable for the contents they host.
These terror cells are operating particularly in the dark web, in the internet, and these are the things we really want to regulate and address, because they really communicate with each other through the internet. That's why in close coordination with social media platforms, perhaps we could come up with mechanisms on how to address these acts enumerated in Section 10 of the 2020 Anti-Terror Law.
The AFP chief also reiterated that the AFP does not support calls for the establishment of a revolutionary government. It can be recalled that in his public address, President Rodrigo Duterte said that the issue on revolutionary government should be discussed publicly, including the military.
It is unconstitutional, and yes, we find it politically motivated, and it will cause more harm than good.
Another issue that was raised in the confirmation hearing was the Holosulu shooting incident on June 29, in which 4 Army intelligence officers were killed by 9 policemen. Gapay said he was surprised to know that the 9 police members involved were not relieved, but were just placed under restrictive custody. He also maintained his position that what happened was murder and not a misencounter.
We were so close to neutralizing them. We're about to take them down in a matter of minutes, and the takedown team was already in the vicinity. Now that unfortunate shooting incident happened, which disrupted that operation.
The AFP chief added that they are just waiting for the results of the preliminary probe for the filing of cases against the involved policemen. The Commission on Appointments approved Gapay's nomination for the rank of general, as well as the ad interim appointments of 29 AFP senior officials.
Many provincial bus operators have been experiencing losses due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Their operation remains a no-go, but the IATF is studying the possibility of giving them the green light. Joanano tells us why.
It has been more than 6 months since the operation of provincial buses coming from Metro Manila have been suspended as the government imposed community quarantine restrictions due to COVID-19. A lot of provincial bus operators have experienced income loss as they are not allowed to operate. According to Provincial Bus Operators Association President Alex Yage, almost half of their 43-member bus companies have temporarily shut down. Others were forced to retrench their employees.
Siguro around 50% na yung mga either nagsara, nag-retrench ng mga employees. Unang-unang na-retrench ay yung mga support employees, no? Ito yung mga inspector, mga dispatcher, ticket seller. Ito yung either nagtatrabaho sa terminal o nagtatrabaho along the route.
In line with this, the Interagency Task Force for the Management of Emerging Infectious Diseases is looking into possibility giving the green light to provincial buses from Metro Manila to operate again.
Yan po ay pinag-uusapan na ngayon sa IATF. Wala pa pong pinal na desisyon dahil nga po lumalabas po sa mga pag-aaral sa iba't ibang bansa na transportation is one of the fastest way to spread COVID-19. So antabayan na lang po natin kung magkakaroon na ng desisyon ang IATF.
The Land Transportation Franchising and Regulatory Board has earlier explained the operation of provincial buses from the NCR is still a no-go because several provinces continue to prohibit the entry of people traveling from Metro Manila. Several local governments feared that arrivals from Metro Manila could be carriers of the COVID-19 virus and enter their provinces. According to the DOH, Metro Manila remains to be the epicenter of coronavirus disease 2019 in the Philippines. Joanano, UNTV News and Rescue, We serve the people, we give glory to God.
The Manila city government asks a diagnostic center to explain an incident in which used rapid test kits were seen scattered on the street. Dante Amento tells us why.
The Manila City Government, through its Bureau of Permits, issued a show cause order this afternoon to CP Diagnostic Center located in Quiapo, Manila. This diagnostic center is given 3 days to explain an incident seen on social media in which rapid test kits were scattered on M. de la Fuente Street in Sampaloc, Manila last night. It happened after a scavenger collected the rapid test kits which dropped from a punctured garbage bag loaded on the scavenger's pedicab. The center's owner, Dr. Noval Santos, received the show cause order. The possible offenses are violation of Republic Act 9003 or the Act providing for an ecological waste management program and mishandling of toxic and hazardous substances under RA 6969.
Kasi dapat ang mga hazardous waste meron nang pumipick up eh. Hindi ito dapat tinatapon na ordinaryong basura.
During the inspection, city authorities also found other violations such as expired sanitary permit and accredited hazardous waste collector permit. The diagnostic center is closed until such time the city government allows it to open again.
Inamin naman ni Doktor kanina, sinabi niya na meron silang pagkukulang, may pagkakamali, and they're willing to correct it.
Meanwhile, the Department of Health appeals particularly to healthcare facilities to follow the protocols on the proper disposal of healthcare waste, violation of which poses hazards to persons handling or collecting the waste, especially without personal protective equipment on. There are also penalties for the violations of the improper disposal of such waste.
So una, we issue warnings. Kapag hindi ka pa rin sumunod, we will suspend you. And the final would be revocation of your license. Aside from that, kung meron pang tatamaan na ibang batas, no, with regard to this healthcare waste, their license will be at risk.
Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Now, a motorist advisory from the Metro Pacific Tollways. There will be a pavement repair happening at the Maykawayan northbound exit ramp. So a portion of it will be temporarily closed from tomorrow, September 3 at 10 p.m. until September 14, that's a Monday. Vehicles coming from Manila may take Libtong exit and turn right at Sampaloc Street. If you are going to Iba Kamalig, take Libtong exit. Go straight via the East Service Road and turn right to Iba Kamalig. The NLEX Corporation calls for patience and understanding from motorists who will be affected by the pavement repair work. For a complete list of alternate routes, visit the NLEX social media accounts. Now, here's a glimpse of what's the weather like in parts of the country. The southwest monsoon or hanging habagat is affecting parts of the country. State Weather Bureau Pag-asa says the southwest monsoon will prevail over northern and central Luzon. Meanwhile, Metro Manila and the rest of the country will experience partly cloudy to cloudy skies with isolated rain showers still due to hanging habagat or localized thunderstorms. On the other hand, Pag-asa continues to monitor the severe tropical storm outside the Philippine area of responsibility with the international name Haishen. As of 3 p.m. today, the tropical storm was located at 2025 east of extreme northern Luzon, moving west-northwestward. Based on the forecast of Pag-asa, the tropical storm may enter PAR on Friday and will be named Christine. It may further intensify, but it is unlikely to directly affect the weather condition in the country over the next 5 days. A court in Olongapo City ordered the release of U.S. Marine Lance Corporal Joseph Scott Pemberton, who was convicted of killing transgender woman Jennifer Laude in 2014. Olongapo City Regional Trial Court, Branch 74, granted Pemberton's motion that sought his early release through the Good Conduct Time Allowance or GCTA law. The court ruled that Pemberton's actual time served in detention is 2,142 days and his GCTA is 1,548 days for a total of 3,690 days, which is already beyond the 10-year maximum penalty for homicide. The court also said that Pemberton has already made a full payment of the damages awarded to the victim. The RTC ordered the Bureau of Corrections to release Pemberton unless he is being held for some other lawful causes. The Laude family on Wednesday appealed the court decision. Meanwhile, according to Presidential Spokesperson Secretary Harry Roque, who was a former private prosecutor for the Laude family, he deplores the short period of imprisonment meted on Pemberton, adding that Laude's death personifies the death of Philippine sovereignty.
And for the news abroad, here's Stephanie C. reporting live from Hong Kong.
Good evening, William. In the USA, New York City could be the first of the big major U.S. cities to see its children back in schools this month under new plans agreed by Mayor Bill de Blasio and the unions. The mayor said he had agreed to delay the start of the school year by 11 days until 21st September to enforce stronger safety measures demanded by the unions. The measures include requiring up to 20% of students and staff in all school buildings to have monthly testing, as well as personal protective equipment for staff, greater distancing of desks, and better ventilation in buildings. Now let's take a closer look at the updated count of coronavirus cases in countries worst hit by the pandemic. Brazil is expected to reach 4 million confirmed cases within the next 48 hours, according to experts. The milestone comes at a time of economic trouble. Meanwhile, as of today, Russia's COVID-19 case count passes the 1 million mark, although death cases in Russia remain lower than 20,000. Moving up the tally are Peru and South Africa, both in more than 600,000 cumulative cases. Also in the USA, renters who are facing eviction because of the coronavirus cannot be expelled from their homes. This as President Donald Trump signed a new executive order. The order gives the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, or CDC, authority until December 31st of this year to ensure renters and property owners do not lose their homes in an effort to slow the spread of COVID-19. Officials say that some 40 million Americans are believed to be at risk of being evicted. Under the CDC order, American renters who meet certain conditions cannot be evicted if they have affirmatively exhausted their best efforts to pay rent, seek government rental assistance, and are likely to become homeless due to eviction. But renters are required to meet certain criteria to qualify, including being able to demonstrate that they would be made homeless or forced into crowded accommodation if evicted from their home. The intent of this order is to use federal authority to prevent evictions that could exacerbate the spread of COVID-19. According to President Trump, he wants to make it unmistakably clear that he is protecting people from evictions. The Australian Parliament passes the extension of job-keeping wage subsidy, allowing Australian businesses to keep operating amid the coronavirus pandemic. Joining us tonight is one of our correspondents in Australia, Marvi Delphine, to tell us why live. Marvi?
Steph, as the country confirms its first recession for almost 3 decades, you're right, the Australian Parliament passes the extension of JobKeeper wage subsidy. The groundbreaking 100 billion Australian dollars JobKeeper wage subsidy scheme, established prior to the peak of the coronavirus pandemic, passed on Tuesday, which will see it extended for another 6 months. This announcement came before the confirmation that Australia has suffered its deepest economic contraction since the 1930s, with new figures showing GDP collapsing by 7% through the June quarter. This is the nation's first recession since 1990 to 1991, with the economy shrinking by 6.3% over the past 12 months, as confirmed by the Australian Bureau of Statistics, or ABS. The welfare program has also expanded, allowing more employees to qualify, though it is up to the National Treasurer to determine the rate and eligibility of the payments. Payments will continue until March 28, 2021, but will be cut from the flat rate of 1,500 Australian dollars per fortnight, equivalent to at least 53,000 pesos. Further changes, once legislated, will take effect from September 28. Welfare recipients who worked more than 20 hours per week before the pandemic will receive $1,200 per fortnight. And from January 4 next year, payments will again be dropped to $1,000 per fortnight. Payment for part-timers will fall to 750 Australian dollars a fortnight, then to $650 a fortnight at the start of next year. The second tranche of JobKeeper payments is expected to cost more than 30 billion Australian dollars. Prime Minister Scott Morrison described the wage subsidy scheme as the most significant economic intervention in Australia's history. He said that the government is transitioning and looking to a day when Australian communities don't need JobKeeper, and when Australians can run their businesses and hold their jobs sustained by a vibrant and growing economy instead. National Treasurer Josh Frydenberg said there have been 340,000 jobs created over the last 2 months in the country. Also, in light of the second coronavirus wave disaster in the state of Victoria, a 6-month extension of the Victorian government's powers to declare the coronavirus pandemic an ongoing state of emergency was also passed in the Australian Parliament overnight. Stephanie?
Marvy, this sounds like good news for employees in terms of welfare support, but what's in it for employers in regards to this JobKeeper subsidy scheme?
Stephanie, for Australian employers, changes were also introduced in the legislation passed yesterday. In response to the COVID-19 second wave crisis in Victoria, the Australian government has relaxed the eligibility criteria for JobKeeper, meaning more businesses can apply on behalf of their employees. Also, employers who no longer qualify for JobKeeper but who are not yet fully recovered will be allowed to take advantage of flexible workplace rules. This means employers who have more freedom to stand down employees or reduce their hours. So even though the extension of the scheme could be a positive to majority of employees, on the other hand, part of the law will see a minority of employees that would be left off worse than they would be if they were receiving the JobKeeper payment. Stephanie?
Thank you, Marvy, for that report. And those are the news from the other parts of the globe. Back to you, William.
With Stephanie C. reporting live from Hong Kong.
Something historic is about to happen in Queensland. Queensland's Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk announces that the Australian Football League, or AFL, Grand Final will be held in her state. Also called the Aussie Rules, the AFL has never been held anywhere but Melbourne, according to the league. In a historic decision reached by the AFL Commission announced today, the Queensland state government was rewarded for its preparedness to allow the AFL home and away season to continue after the COVID-19 pandemic forced Victoria, where 10 of the 18 clubs are based, into shutdown. But AFL Chief Executive Gillian McLachlan says that under the deal struck with the Queensland government and pending ongoing approval from Queensland's health authorities, a crowd of 30,000 will be able to attend the grand final. but they have a contingency in case COVID-19 outbreaks occur that would threaten the ability of safely hosting the grand final. He says they have the ability to reduce numbers and, if needed, move the Foodie Grand Final. According to the plan, the 2020 Toyota AFL Grand Final will be played at night at the Gaba on Saturday, October 24. Premier Palaszczuk thanks the AFL and the game's fans in Victoria for trusting Queensland with their most important event. And those are the reasons behind the news, September 2, 2020. I am Horilyn Delgado.
Because we need to know, we will always ask why. I am William Theo. We serve the people, we give glory to God.